I'd like now to go over the concept of a traditional deployment of Windows 10 using imaging. Now keep in mind the features and things that I'm about to show you here, these have been around for years. The actual concept of imaging has been around for a long time, even going back well over 20 years. One of the very first jobs I ever had in IT was dealing with imaging of computers back in the 1990s. So this has been around for a while. Now it's changed a lot over the years, and the version of imaging that we use in Windows 10 now has been around pretty much since Windows Vista came out. So this has been around for quite a while, and they've added some new features and capabilities to it, but all in all, it's really the same beast it was just about back in the year 2008 when Vista came out. Okay, so to start with, our goal here is we've got to have a way of capturing an existing computer's configuration, settings, files, and getting that all over on another computer. If you think about it like this, if I had to install 50 computers, okay, let's say that this little icon that I'm drawing right here is going to represent 50 new computers, okay? So if that's the case, this 50 new computers that I've got to set up and I've got to get configured and deployed and installed, sitting around, running around with a bunch of DVDs and things is, again, not going to be the fastest way to do it, okay? So if our company was to buy 50 new computers from, some kind of an OEM out there, an original equipment manufacturer, a vendor, a computer vendor, basically I've got to get Windows 10 installed and set up on these machines. Now, how am I going to go about doing that, okay? So one thing I could do is I could set up one of these computers with Windows 10 on it. I could configure all the software on it I need, okay, and then capture an image of this computer. Okay, let's say that this was a sales computer, that in these 50 new computers are going to be new sales computers, okay. Now we'll also say that perhaps this particular computer is an inside sales computer, and we're going to have an outside sales. So you know how in companies they'll have inside sales, they'll have outside sales, all of that, all right? So this is an inside sales computer that I'm dealing with here, and I'm going to call this my reference computer, all right? So this is going to be a reference computer. It has everything on it I need. It's got Windows 10 set up the way I want. It's got updates. Maybe it's joined to the domain already. I've got everything on it, virus protection, spyware protection, maybe Office is already installed, but the problem is I've got to get this set up here replicated down to all these new machines, okay? So here is the way Microsoft traditionally says you should do it. Microsoft says you should set up a server, okay, like a Windows Server 2019 machine. It could be something earlier than that, 2016, 2012, whatever. And you're going to install a service on that machine called WDS, also referred to as Windows DS, which stands for Windows Deployment Services. And this server is going to act as our imaging server. So we're going to use this as our imaging server, okay, that's going to help us with this process. Now, you're also going to install, usually, the MDT on that, the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. Granted, you can install the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit on Windows 10 if you want, but you can put it on the WDS server as well. If you're going to be remoting in and managing that machine as the imaging machine, you can do that, okay? All right, and so from there, we also have a service that automatically comes with Windows Deployment Services. It's called PXE, which stands for Pre-Boot Execution Environment, okay? So chances are, if you have purchased a network adapter card or you purchase computers with network adapter cards already in it, which is normally the case, that network adapter card probably supports PXE. PXE has been around for a long time, and a lot of your network adapter cards in the last 20 years have been coming with it. What does it let you do? PXE allows a computer to boot up across the network. Even if it does not have an existing operating system on it, the computer can boot up, and using the BIOS UEFI settings of the boot phase of the computer, it actually can boot off the network adapter card, and it can locate that PXE service, which is going to play a role in imaging. So here's the other thing I want to throw out. An installed version of Windows 10 is already an imaged computer, just so you know. You may say, well, wait a minute, because I installed Windows 10 off of a DVD. It's not an image. Yes, it is, actually. Everything is an image. Ever since Vista came out, every operating system of Windows is an image. Okay, in fact, you have a file on the Windows DVD, which is called the install.wim file. That install.wim file is an image, essentially. This is called an online image. Okay, you may say, wait a minute, what if I shut this computer down? Is it still an online image? Yes, it's still an online image. A version of Windows that is installed is an online image. Whether it's booted up or not, it's an online image. And you may say, well, what is an offline image? Well, bear with me, and I'll explain that in just a second. Okay. All right. So I've got to have a way to essentially capture this image and have this image stored on this image server. So there's got to be a way to go about doing that, and as you can imagine, there is, right? We have this thing we can use called the Windows PE, pre-installation environment. The trick, though, is you have to get the Windows PE running up on this computer. Now, how can you do that? Well, you actually can do that by PXE. PXE, you can boot this computer up in the PXE mode, which will boot up and find this service. This service will download Windows PE into memory on this computer, and then you can capture the image. Okay, another way is you could have PE on a DVD. There even used to be versions of it that would fit on a CD. And then lastly, another way would be a USB drive with PXE installed on it. You can get Windows, I'm sorry, with PE installed on it. You can get Windows PE off Microsoft's website. It's a download, free download. Now, Windows PE is going to come with a tool called DISM, dism.exe. Okay, there used to be an older tool called ImageX that you would use, but DISM is the newer tool. Came out a few years ago. Deployment, Imaging, Servicing, and Management is what that stands for. And you're going to use that tool to actually capture the image, that command. It's going to capture the image, and it can store this image down on this server. Okay, so at that point, I have an image file. I can call the image file sales.wim. Now that is an offline image. This is an offline image file you're seeing here. Okay, offline image file. Let me just move this over a little bit. Okay, and so an offline image is an image that's actually stored in a WIM file. Okay, sales.wim in this case. All right. Now, actually, interestingly enough, you're going to find that every image inside of an image file has to have a name, and it also has to have this thing called an index number. So I'm going to name the image that's going to be in this file. It's going to be called Inside Sales, and it'll have an index number of 1. Okay. Now, you may say, well, why do you need that? Why do you have to have the name and the index inside the image? Well, the reason is because, believe it or not, you can store more than one image inside of an image file. That sounds insane, right? But you can. In fact, let me demonstrate here in this drawing what I'm saying. Watch this. I'm just going to copy that real quick, and I'm going to rename. This is not going to be called Inside Sales. This is going to be called Outside Sales. So imagine if you set up another reference image here. Okay, Outside Sales Computer, okay, and it's slightly different than Inside Sales. It needs slightly different applications and things like that. So believe it or not, we could capture that image the exact same way that we captured the first image. We use Windows PE, DISM, capture the image, except this time we're going to store it in the same file, but it's going to be called Outside Sales, and it'll be an index number of 2. Now, why is that important? Because when I go to deploy the image down here, I can choose which image gets deployed down to these 50 new computers. If I wanted to, I could have 25 of the computers be Inside Sales and the other 25 be Outside Sales if I want. So that is going to be deploying the image, okay? And it works the same way. You're going to use Windows PE, you're going to use DISM, same thing, dism.exe, to deploy those images. Now, what you're seeing here, this is called the light touch installation, as I referenced in an earlier lecture, okay? But you could also achieve zero touch if your company was to set up what is called an SCCM server. SCCM, System Center Configuration Manager, supports a feature called Wake on LAN, okay? And it will also use some of the MDT task sequences and all of that, and it can automate the entire process of deployment, capturing, and deployment. So I can actually, with SCCM, I can actually have these computers wake up and tell them to go get the image from the WDS server and what image to get and everything, and basically automate the entire process from start to finish. So again, no kidding, you could start on a Friday. You could schedule this to happen Friday evening. You could come back in on Monday and these 50 new computers are all set up for you, okay, with the help of SCCM. Again, in order to do that, you got to have the deployment services and MDT, and SCCM is the critical part. And remember though, SCCM is not free. You would have to purchase that, okay? So hopefully that gives you guys a good understanding or a foundation understanding of the concept of the way Microsoft Imaging works and the process of light touch deployment versus a zero touch deployment.